My name is Donal O Shea, and I come from Kerry originally, and I've spent the last 17 years on an island, Clare Island, off the coast of Mayo. And previous to that, I spent 3 years on Inishmaan, one of the Aran Islands. So 20 years, you could call me an Palamak at this stage, the island man.
And what was your role on the island?
My role was manager of the island, coordinator of all grants and services that the island had to have, from refuse collection right up to marketing tourism. I was responsible for building up the infrastructure over the last 17 years. It was new piers, the community centre, the football pitch, preschool, and you know, the roads and anything at all with regard to infrastructure. When I left last year, actually, I was beginning to work on increasing the population and creating jobs. But the infrastructure had to be built up first, and then from that, the jobs would follow. However, we did increase the population there between, in the 17 years I was there, it went up from about 137 to 172 when I left. One of the few islands that increased its population in those years, you know. I'm not saying that was due to me, but I played a part in it, I suppose.
And where would the job growth be on an island?
Well, before I left, as it was at the time, there were jobs in the fish farm. There was 12 people working full-time on the fish farm. You had farmers, you had about 30 small farmers, and a lot of their wives had bed and breakfast business. You had the hotel business. You had, well, the professionals and the school teachers and the nurses and the shop and the pubs.
Is there a lot of money spent on islands?
There was quite a lot of money during my time on the island anyhow, because from about 19, when I left the Aran Islands, the English-speaking islands weren't getting any money at all. I remember being interviewed by Justine McCarthy, the Irish Independent, and I published the figures I was getting on the Aran Islands, and I was chastised for that because I was on the Islands Committee. But I wanted to get that the English-speaking islands would get the same type of finance as the Irish-speaking islands. And at the time, Donal Carey was the minister, and he was assistant to the Taoiseach. So Donal was the first man to recognise the islands, actually. He gave 1 million, I remember, the first year. And then, of course, when he went out of power, Eamon O'Keefe came on, and Eamon had the benefit of the Celtic Tiger, and we got 10 million for piers, and 3 million for piers, and $250,000 for piers, and 180,000 for a football pitch. You know, we got loads of money then.
And would it be cost effective, this kind of money?
Oh, well, it wasn't so much cost effective as being socio-economic, because I had a crowd over from England. I was trying to get an airstrip on the island, and I was getting on pretty well with it. And I had dealt with Paddy O'Keefe of Iran, and I got to the stage where, you know, they would do some research about it. So these two books came in from the UK, from Crown University, and they started throwing information on my desk about islands up in Scotland. Islands that have 4,000 or 5,000 people. And I said, lads, this is not about cost effective at all. I said, it's about socio-economic. But what I wanted to do was that on the Aran Islands, the plane goes out in the morning at 9 o'clock and comes back in by 9:30, and it sits there until 4 o'clock in the evening before it goes out again. And my idea was to use that capital on the ground, bring it up here, do Inishmaan and Inishtuck and Clare Island, and go back down again.
A little bus run?
Yeah, because you had capital sitting on the ground all day. Good, expensive capital, you know. And Paddy O'Keefe gave me, you know, as much help as he could, you know. But that research shut us all down. And then Eamon O'Keefe wasn't able to go ahead in because he used to say to me, look, Don, that's what the research says, I can't do anymore, you know. And things like that, getting finance. The leader was great for finance, called the Nilon and the Southwest Bear Development Company. And Mehel Mayo, I was on the board of Mehel Mayo as well. And a thing that helped me, I suppose, is I was in every committee and board you could think of on the mainland with regard to development. And I enjoyed it, you see, I enjoyed that. And it helped me with my job as well, you know.
And where would you see the economic success of an island coming out of?
The next success would be, I suppose, well, tourism is a big one.
Tourism.
But we had a cable going under the sea out to the island, electric cable. And I had an idea to build a wind farm and sell the power to the mainland. And at the same time, the islanders would get a reduced cost for their electricity. And
what happened?
I don't know, that was in progress when I left actually, I don't know what it's got since. But that would give a job to 2 people because you'd have to have a technical man there at all times, because if it was down, you know, and people's electricity was gone, you'd have to have a technical man there and maybe another half man to keep it going. So that would create jobs. I think tourism could create a lot more jobs as well if I found that we'll say the singles weekend I had was filled the island twice a year.
And when did you start that about?
I started that in 1996, and it was a great boost for us for all that. Then the hotel had a fire and there was no accommodation there, so it cut down on my numbers, which made it very tight. But it still was making money, but they hadn't run it since I left now.
Is it a constant battle, is it, out there, trying to survive?
Well, I suppose you'd have to be a psychoanalyst. you know, it was, in any small community, it's not just Clare Island, because I experienced this in my own parish down in Half. In any small island, you have people who have these resentments against each other. And then one fella comes up with an idea, the other guy lock it, you know? And that goes on, and I think it's one of the main drawbacks of development in any community. Now, I said that down in Valencia when I was down there, because the first night I was in Inishman, for example, I went up to the pub to see what the scene was, and I was talking to this lovely man at the counter, you know, and I felt that we all getting together for the good of the island. And I went into the toilet, and a fella came in after me and said, "What you doing talking to that bastard for?" You know, that was my first night on the island. So the split was there, as Brendan Behan had said, the split was there immediately. So that is the one drawback islands have, is that they are not all pulling together, you know. And any small, and that's not just an island.
Well, that happens every place, really, doesn't it? Or it can happen every place.
Absolutely.
Actually, Westport seems to be the exception to that, doesn't it?
It does actually. Westport is the exception, and I noticed it in Tralee as well. When I was operating in Tralee, I always looked at Killarney, because all the Killarney hotels got together, went abroad, marketed Killarney, and came back. All the Tralee hotels are fighting against each other, you know. So you need cooperation. And they not the cuddle the kale, as they say in Irish, you know.
The bigger picture. The bigger picture.
The bigger picture.
Yeah.
And where you have this dissent of jealousy, and the funny thing about it is that the fight is always at the top minority. And these are the people who get on committees, and they get on with the sole reason that one fella stopping the other fella. I mean, I used to have a fella come into my office and I'd say, "Why do your man up the road get a grant?" And I'd say, "He applied for it, you know. So can you apply for it?" You know, this sort of thing, you know.
Did you live on the island?
I lived 5 days a week on the island, from Mondays to Thursday night, 4 days.
What's it like living out there in winter time?
I was fine. I mean, I'm very self-sufficient, even though I don't drink. I read an awful lot, listened to music, went down occasionally to the community centre or the hotel and had a chat with people. You know, I have no problem in bars.
So you occupied yourself?
I occupied myself, yeah.
Is it not a bit depressing out there in the winter time? No?
Well, I suppose one of my fortes is I have a positive outlook in life, and I think I could be happy even in jail. Hopefully I'll never get there, but as the guy said, not prison bars and walls is a Milton make a jail, you know.
Like we have lovely islands off the Mayo coast, haven't they? Like Clare Island,
Absolutely.
Boffin and-
Well, I'm still chairman of the Mayo Islands Committee, and there is now there was 10 islands. There's one now not there. Well, it's there, but the only surviving member died there a while ago. So you have between Clare Island, Inishturk, Inishbiggle, Iniscuttle, Inishnakeelio, Inishcart, Inishlyre, you know, all those islands off the coast, and you know, they're thriving, small populations on them, but thriving, you know. And I love to help the small islands as much as I can, you know.